Hello and welcome to another episode of the Complete Agent Podcast, where each week we get together and talk all things estate agency. My name is David Warburton. I'm joined as ever by my amazing colleagues, James Kendall and Ian Story. This week we've got an amazing special guest as well, who we'll introduce shortly. For now, JK, how's your week been?
Yeah, good, thank you, mate. Got some really good listings. Got a lovely farmhouse coming on, actually in Gates's neck of the woods, actually.
You've got a farmhouse?
Hey?
You've got a farmhouse?
I haven't got, not personally, but near to Mr. Gates, there is a farmhouse coming on, which we'll discuss later on, potentially.
I think you've just given away our special guest.
Have I? It's going to be in the title anyway, isn't it, with special guest Simon Gates?
Well, I'm not sure about that.
Spoiler alert.
Anyway,
huh?
Who's the special guest?
Tom Panos, but he couldn't make it. So really good weekly listen. I also am absolutely buzzing, and we'll talk about this maybe a bit later on in the podcast for context. But I've just pinched a £2.25 million listing off another agent that was all set about to take photos. That's a really great coup. And we've just got, our pipeline is the biggest it's ever been. I think part of that is due to how long things are taking. But we've swelled with listings. We've got lots going on. It's just been a really good couple of weeks, to be honest. Just doing some more exchanging. But in terms of actually the front end of the business, we're flying at the moment. Great stuff. What about you, Story?
Yeah, the same, mate. Yeah, May feels how May should feel. It's busy with listings. It's busy with vals. It's really, really busy on new shoots. So it's good. Yeah, really, really good. I think I said on my pod last week that the week before it was a bit quieter on sales and the pipeline has sort of dipped. But the pipeline is right back up there now. Phil's agreed quite a few sales. I've agreed a couple. We had one that I put on at 1.675 that had absolutely no viewing inquiries for 2 weeks. And then we've had one viewing and they've offered.
Nice.
And they've not offered, and the cash buyers, and they've not offered too far below either. So I'm hoping to tie that up today, tomorrow. They're just playing the game. I think they're playing the game of, keeping a little bit quieter, but they are really, really keen on it. So
the feeling when that happens is just immense, isn't it? Because you put something on, particularly if you think it's very saleable, nothing comes of it in the first few days. You think, why are we not getting inquiries? And then bang.
Yeah. So on the whole, really, really good. Yeah, we've actually recruited yesterday for our vacancy. We had a vacancy for our sort of office rock, who will assist Eleanor in incoming inquiries, and then the new recruits also going to do all of our AML, proof of funds, and then a lot more buyer work as well. So Aidan is super happy.
Is that the same role, Ian? So that person's going to deal with admin, AML, and sort of deal with incoming calls and things like that?
Yeah, she's one of our existing viewing specialists. She's called Mandy. She's absolutely brilliant, really lovely lady. I think she'll be a perfect fit into the team. She's really, really personable. So even without me asking her on viewing, she's been like getting a phone out and going on the Stories website and showing buyers of the properties that we've got. And, she sort of gets it.
Nice.
So she's a really good recruit. No, all good, mate. All good. No issues really at all. Other than, the pipeline's really, really good, but there's a lot of stock. The stuff is definitely taking longer to sell. So there's much more client management than there was, but the overall headline figures for the business are really good.
What about you, Dave?
Yeah, a bit of a mixed week, really. Obviously, I was away and I came back on Tuesday, so my diary is absolutely mental this week with valuations, which is great, and I've got some really good valuations. A couple of fallers, which were disappointing because they were quite far on as well. It's always annoying when if they fall in the first few weeks, you're less disappointed, aren't you? We'll just get it resold.
Yeah,
there was one as well. It was right at the death, which was annoying.
You're banking money though, aren't you? As well, sometimes you're like, that's going to be in the bank next month, and then
exactly. So a couple of fallers, but on the flip side, we've agreed a couple of great sales. And before I went away, as you boys will know, one of our quarterly not on the market letters went, and it was nice to see things coming through. We actually had 3 I sent you the screenshot, didn't I? We booked 3 valuations inside 21 minutes. All 3 had received a not on the market letter that morning. All very high value homes. So it was just it's really, I don't know, let's get a buzz when they come in and it's direct from.
It's worth doing, isn't it? Because it's a mammoth task. We all do our processes for direct mail differently, but it's a mammoth task. And when you were what, 7,500 this quarter, Dave?
Yeah,
Is that right?
yeah.
We're like nearly 10,000, so nine odd thousand, and it's a task and a half to get them out. But when they go out and they because it's a big investment as well. There's a lot of money spent on getting those out. When you think about stamps, 85 pence now for a second class stamp, nearly 10,000 going out. You can do the maths plus your printing plus everything else, and it's not cheap, but
it's not cheap, but it's well worth it. Like I said, the return, we've said it before in previous podcasts. I think obviously if you look at the unit return versus what you're sending out, you might think, oh God, that's a waste of time. And to a certain extent, it might be at the lower end of the market. But for example, I've had, I think, 5 booked so far, and the combined value is close to £5 million for me. So again, you can do the maths on that.
What's that? 100 grand's worth of fees, isn't it? Basically,
yeah, exactly. So it's an absolute no-brainer.
And if you spend 10 grand out, and it segues quite nicely actually into. I listened to Gates's podcast with Simon Ledbetter, all about the stats and the voice. Is it the voice of the agent? I think it was called, and how 10% of your spend and effort should go into something like direct mail. Yeah. And I think that just, the stats, again, we're obviously going to talk a bit about data today, but the stats kind of back up that, again, one lot of direct mail, let's say £10,000-ish spend for you, Dave, has resulted in 100 grand of fees already, without anything else landing and all of the other fridges and everything that you're on. So,
just on that, because Ian, you brought something up the other day about you'd got a brilliant listing that sold direct from a nom, and I think you said that's paid for the letters for the next 2 quarters or something like that. For me, my Q4 was so good, it's paid for the entire year this year, at least, and some. Yeah. So and we've had a great start to Q1 with the new letter. But another one, lads, perhaps my best return on investment so far this year. I told you before I went away, and I shared it in our private group. I'd written a bespoke buyer letter. So I've got a couple of high net worth individuals looking to buy something. They've been looking for their dream home for 4 years. They took a sidestep 4 years ago into a house that wasn't right for them, but there was just nothing available. And when I went to see them, because they'd viewed one of mine that wasn't suitable, I just sort of said, look, have you dealt with anybody who would help find you a house, like a source or anything like that? They said no. I said, well, let me come around and have a chat to you about that, and we can obviously chat about your own. Now, they're in about a £900,000 house. It's lovely, a couple of acres, quite a unique home, 2,000 square feet. They need to at least double the square footage, and they want more acreage if possible. So they gave me a list of areas, very bespoke about the type of house they want. And I wrote this bespoke letter. I said 99 out before I went on holiday, and that landed. I should have probably thought about this, but it landed just as I was on holiday. So I was taking calls around the pool, much to the delight of my family. But obviously, you can't ignore them. But I said 99 letters. I've had 9 phone calls from people.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's almost 10% response, which is unheard of.
Amazing, yeah. So 2 people rang me just to say, I really like your approach. Thanks for sending it me, but I'm not going to be selling this home for a very long time. I just wanted to let you know so you can take me off your list. I said, right, thanks very much. And one actually went on to say, I know somebody else who's selling. I don't think they're going to be selling yet, but I'll tell them about you. Thanks very much for writing to me. Like, that was a bit strange. And then, well, really nice, strange. But then the other 7 are all genuinely interested in selling their homes, but are on that same merry-go-round that a lot of people are on, where they're looking to find their own dream home and they're not doing anything with their own. And then when you speak to them, you're kind of educating them to say, well, it's going to keep happening, and you're going to be like my clients who've been looking for 4 years. You need to take action. So the action will be, let's try and find you a property and get your property market ready. At this end of the market, you've got to build chains a lot of the time. I think there's something like Stick Gatesy might know when he comes on. Another spoiler alert. That 30%, I think it is, of transactions throughout the UK never see the light of day on Rightmove or something like that. And there's a lot of these transactions that go unnoticed. And this is one way to draw them out. But these clients have got a budget between 1.5 million if they move right now, up to 3 million if they sell their home in tandem, which is likely because the people that we're finding also need a bit of time. I've had some amazing responses. There's one particular house that is on Grand Designs, that was on Grand Designs a few years ago. So I'm going out to see him. Another thing is with him, he's a very private person. He did the Grand Design show, and he said after the Grand Design show, he kept getting loads of leaflets through asking if he wanted to sell. People driving up, looking at it. So he's quite nervous about going on the open market. So he thought that this sort of approach would work for him. And then there's another two or three. There's like some of them are not right, but they're all looking to do something. So they're now kind of in my little nurture campaign. But there's two or three of them are really good and tick a lot of boxes for this client. And I'm hoping to take further. I'm having another meeting with them today just to check on areas and make sure everything's okay. And subject to that being right, I'm going to be taking them around to these houses. So again, it's another advert for direct mail. We do not on the market letters, but anybody who's struggling to generate listings or anything like that, are you looking at your buyer database? Because there's gold in it. And
Can I just say one more thing before we introduce today's mystery guest? And that is just, and it is super quick, is that direct mail obviously is fantastic, and we're obviously going to get into that with our guest as well. But one of the things we've had real success on, and just talking about that farmhouse, for example, is buyers and spinning the business, like turning buyers into listings. You know, that the buyer of the nice farmhouse that Richard is about to list, he's managed that buyer. He showed them around a house, kept in contact with them, on the market with another agent in contract. Again, we might talk about that later. But there's so many listings and great listings that have come to me recently where I've shown people around the house. And I think, you know, we've always had that conversation before about who should be doing the viewings, but on the upper end stuff, there's real power in the likes of me or Rich in my company, Ian in your company, Dave in yours, like doing that one-to-one viewing with somebody at high end and being able to kind of talk your way into the other house to kind of get that valuation and get it on the market. Yeah. And we've had so many from that. And again, you know, Rich managed that one perfectly, and it's a beautiful listing that I can't wait to show off. Anyway, right. Shall we get in and introduce today's mystery guest?
Let's do it.
So unfortunately, Tom Panos was unavailable today. So we've got a super sub. If you don't know who he is, then you've probably been living under a rock or you don't have social media. But yeah, let's introduce today's guest, Mr. Simon Gates. Welcome to the Complete Agent Podcast.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm glad I got like a mention, I think, within the first 30 seconds, because when you've been doing these origin
contract.
The last few weeks of the origin stories, I was like, why am I not being mentioned anymore?
Yeah. I wonder why I get a text from you. But where's my mention? I just looked at the transcript. I'm not here.
Yeah. I think that's probably because we checked our bank account and there was nothing in there. So
yeah.
I don't know.
So let's dive in then. So obviously, you know, we've obviously been on your podcast, so I thought it was only right for, well, apart from Ian, I don't know if Ian's been on yours yet, but we've kind of been on each other's. But I'm keen to kind of really add value, and I know you are Mr. Value First, and kind of give people an insight into, you know, how they can use data, and, you know, just generally have a good old. We all love estate agency, don't we? I would say we're all estate agency geeks in on the pod here, and we love talking agency, and I just think naturally the conversation will flow. But for those of you that don't know who Simon is, Si, do you want to just explain who you are and what you do and how you help agents?
Yes, I think I'm in a unique position where I had the sort of 13 years estate agency experience and then 3 years in the prop tech data sort of sector. And then people like you, James, were like, why don't you just go set up your own business consulting on all things direct mail, social media, tech, property data. And then, yeah, you told me to quit my job, so I did. But no, like I jokingly say that, but that is the truth there. And yeah, it's using all that kind of experience of having sat on both sides of the fence. And like I learned more in my 3 years at Home Search than I think I possibly did in 13 years as an agent, in terms of the real power of data. I was a massive data geek like Dave, but I then realised how powerful that data was in those few years. So yeah, I help agents sort of grow their businesses through property data, market stats, direct mail, social media, tech insights. So it's kind of packaging that all together.
Anyone else got anything to ask before I dive in and ask anything else? Dave, I can see you itching to ask something.
Well, not really. I mean, I think we'll probably get into it as things flow. But what do you think? Like at the moment, you're seeing a lot, or you speak to a lot of agents. You've obviously got your own podcast. What are you seeing, Gatesy, as some of the main issues at the moment that people are struggling with, and how data can essentially solve that issue for them? Because we've got our own thoughts on this. We've got a private members group, and people consistently put similar things in there. And for me, a lot of the time, it does come down to prep and data. But there's a whole host of things. But for you, what are you seeing often,
Yes,
and how can it be solved?
So like data's not the sexiest of subjects, right? And I'm sure people look at yourselves who are in your group or listen to podcasts and like, oh my God, I wish I could be doing those super sexy videos like those guys are doing. But have they seen the footage James has put online before about like stamping the envelopes and writing the envelopes and all that sort of stuff? And then it's like, well, actually, I think Jimmy Carr had said it on the podcast he was on recently. It's like people want your life, but they don't want to do the work that got you that life.
Yeah.
So in terms of the data, basically, it's very simple. You're either creating data or you're working data. So you've sent out that buyer campaign and got nine responses, did you say?
Yeah.
So you've created that data. Now you've got to work it.
Yeah.
And I think that, again, there'll be some agents who create that data and then they go, oh, they're not moving today. What a waste of time that was. But if you've got, let's say, 10,000 chimney pots and you're off the market, every piece of marketing you do, from direct mail to social media to networking, in my opinion, it's all geared around getting the name, contact details and address of every single high-end homeowner in your area. I do not care if they're selling tomorrow or in 10 years' time. If you have the details of every single one of those 10,000, you're winning.
Yeah.
Because then you actually arguably wouldn't necessarily need to be marketing anymore. You'd then be working that data. Phone, email, WhatsApp, staying in contact, etc.
And what are you finding historically has worked for you, and any new techniques that you've sort of, as the technology's moved on and things like that? I mean, you obviously do your monthly updates, and they're absolutely great, by the way. The data that you produce is great. What are you finding that consistently works? I mean, obviously, we're advocates of direct mail, etc. But
well, I think so. First of all, with you guys, and you obviously talk very positively about direct mail, and I'm a huge direct mail geek, but I think Ian's mentioned it before as well in the pod, but it's not just a direct mail. I think that, again, James, we were speaking offline about it, about that like silver bullet that agents look for. You guys are omnipresent. Like, I can't open up my phone without seeing your brands on social media, but then I know that you're consistent in sending direct mail. We know that you guys network. I've started seeing Ian back, or your colleagues back, doing the kind of interviews with local businesses or relaunching the local podcast. So I think that you'll get an agent who perhaps goes really deep into one thing like direct mail, and they're going, oh, I've had no one respond. And it's like, but have they received your letter, gone online to have a little look at you before they ring? And they go, hasn't posted on Facebook in 6 months, or they don't have any Google reviews. So like when you send out direct mail, again, for the maybe, let's say, modern thinking estate agent where they think direct mail's dead, it's like that's an offline strategy, but what you're trying to do is take that offline audience online, because not everyone's just going to get that letter, ring you up straight away and go, oh, your letter's amazing, I'm selling tomorrow. They might receive the letter and go, oh, I'm going to go online and check those guys out. All of a sudden they're online and they leave a digital footprint. So if they're on your website and you've got your Facebook pixel, etc., all of a sudden you're following them around social media. There's a word that I can't pronounce, but I'm going to try it. Propinquity, I think, that Simon Ledbetter introduced me to. And essentially it's where the more you see someone, the more you know, like, and trust them. So you guys doing direct mail, social media is increasing that propinquity with your marketplace. So Ian, again, I can't remember the exact example, but I think you're on someone's doorstep and they're like, you're Ian Story, I received your letter. And then they're probably, I've seen you online as well. So it's having that marketing in combination and being omnipresent there.
Yeah, well, Story, you spoke the other week, didn't you, about having that marketing mix last week? Yeah, a few weeks ago. You were talking about
marketing mix is very, very key, but it's also consistency across all of those elements, isn't it? And that's where so many fall down. You know, you need to be consistent across all of the different marketing elements. forever, really. As long as your business is running, you have to be doing it all the time, whether times are busy or times are quiet.
And I was going to jump in here as well and say, obviously, in our kind of private chat yesterday with our members, we were just talking about a few different things, and a lot of the challenges that seem to come up for agents all seem to be very similar. I obviously I love LinkedIn. I've been fairly active on there in the last few years and connected with agents, connected with homeowners. And a lot of the agents I see, again, it's the same old posts a lot of the time. Agents overvaluing and undercutting on fees, people wanting to push their fees up. And I just think, a lot of people need to look introspectively. And I think, the mini series, I think, we did that and we summarized it, but I just kind of go back to that every single time. It is basics. And how do you look? If you want to charge a higher fee and command a higher fee, you've got to be worth it. And, you've got to do all the right things in the right places. So as someone kind of externally or external, if that's the right word, from the complete agent, Simon, what are you seeing the best agents are doing up and down the country, certainly in the mid to high end space?
Yeah, so first of all, in kind of on that last bit you said there, I'll probably get this terribly wrong, but what's that saying? Charge what you're worth, be worth what you charge?
Yeah.
So it's all well and good saying I want to charge, let's say you're at 1% and you want to get to 1.5 and then 2. I know, Ian, you spoke, I think, last week saying, can you potentially get that more towards 2.5 now? And you've increased your upfront marketing cost, but it's believing in you are worth what you charge, first of all, because it's an internal mindset. And then, actually doing things properly. So I think it's also showing your workings out, like the maths exam back in the day, you wouldn't get marks if you didn't show your workings out. When you guys you're basically marketing your marketing. So when you're out, I don't know, doing the Twilight stuff and you're sharing onto socials at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, here we are doing a Twilight shoot. That's what 2% looks like. You're showing that. Whereas if you just stick a property on Rightmove and there's no pre-launch strategy, there's no exclusivity, there's no direct mail campaign for an open house or anything, there's nothing there. Whereas if you're going up in someone's living room, you're saying when we launch it on the 20th of May, the week before that, it's going to have sneak peek previews across Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, going to put it on LinkedIn. We've got the Twilight happening. We're going to do a direct mail campaign to people that might be interested in buying it. You're showing them a difference. Whereas if the other two agents just come in and go, we can have it on Rightmove by the end of the day and with 1%. Yeah. I think you said it, you guys said it last week with, was it the reference to Chris Kiriakou? And I think it's so true. If let's say I'm 1.25% and Dave's 1%, they're probably just going to go with Dave. But actually, that's very similar. Being double the fee, I think that's such a powerful point. Why are they double the fee? Because you're getting double the value.
So just to kind of double down, so you don't have to name names, but in the kind of mid to high end space, I know you work with a lot of agents in that mid to high end space. What would you say? So what's a common challenge that you find that people have, and also equally, what is something that those agents are doing really? What are you seeing that they've done really, really well?
So I think I'm going to use James Scudder and Tanya Baker as examples. Because again, going back to what I said earlier, people would look at James and Tanya online and think, oh my God, that's amazing. How lucky are they? But actually behind the scenes when it started, they were grafting so much. They still graft now. But it's what's the saying again? It's like James with his bad analogies each week, guys. The weights don't get the weights don't get lighter, you get stronger. I think that's a prime example again of charging higher fees. But with James and Tanya, they have both launched their businesses in the past few years, during COVID, and gone in and annihilated the higher end of the market when there are some real big names in those areas. And at the start, they did the hard graft no one else was prepared to do. The silver bullet lies in the work that you're putting off doing and just doing the stuff that others won't. So knocking on doors, sending out letters, and again, going back to what Ian said, consistency. And before, you'll get some agents who will say, but I don't have any followers. What's the point in putting content out? well, you won't get followers unless you're putting content out. Well,
No.
I don't have any content because I don't have any houses to sell. Well, Ian said again on the podcast last week or the other week, he was standing outside of other people's houses doing a kind of Chris Watkin method or going and interviewing business owners. Like, we're in such a blessed position in this industry, but you're like the local tourist board in your area. Like, you know, people would pop into my office back in the day and ask for directions, what time does the bus come, or on completion, it's like, which pub's the best place to go have a pint, or where should we go for a Sunday roast? Like, you're not just a go-to person for the property market. It's about schools, the golf club, the community, everything. So I've digressed there a lot, but just going back to the Tanya James thing, like, on this, you see on like Instagram, like the highlight, the reels, it all looks really fancy, but behind the scenes, they are just absolutely outgrafting their competition.
Yeah. Well, I know Tanya quite well now. Like, I consider her a friend, and like knowing what she puts in the background, like some of the chats that we've had in terms of, you know, I can remember when she had, I think, 1,500 followers, and I was following her then through you, Simon, actually, because you'd actually recommended, you said, look, you know, check out her. And also James, to be fair, I connected with James on LinkedIn and on Instagram. And you just, you know, I've seen their exponential growth, and I've obviously I don't really know James that well, other than on LinkedIn, if that makes sense. But Tanya, when we've kind of spoken, like, you know, she's again like grinding direct mail in the background, postcard campaigns, buyer letter campaigns, like doubling down on everything that she's got on social media, you know, implementing things. Sometimes they don't work, but you know, it's JFDI, you know, just getting on and doing it, and just going over challenges, because I'm really keen to kind of, I think we've delivered a lot of value already anyway, but I just feel like if we can drill down between us on some of the challenges that, you know, members and non-members have raised, and really try and give something, so when someone listens to it, and, you know, it's great that we have a chat, and I think we're quite easy to listen to, but at the same time, what we have found, and the feedback's been that people listen to the pod, and each time they take something away. And I just think sometimes, you know, yes, we sound like a broken record, you know, do this, do that, do this. But I do think, again, you touched on it again, Simon, consistency. But, you know, so something that came up the other day was fees, and you hit the nail on the head. Charge what you're worth, be worth what you charge. And just, again, if someone was going to listen to this today, so based on, you know, obviously we preach direct mail. If someone's listening to this, Simon, what would you say if they were going to nail one thing immediately that would have an immediate impact on their business in the next 90 days? What would it be?
So I think there's a saying of OGAP, outstanding, good, average, poor.
Yeah.
So first of all, look at your business and go, Ian's writing that down. Look at your business and go, right, the way we answer the phone, is that outstanding? Is it good? Is it average? Is it poor? And maybe outstanding is 2%, good is 1.5, average is 1, and poor is 0.5. And just going through all your different systems and going, we're actually at 0.5 there. So is your letters that are going out, are they actually 10,000 leaflets that say, do you want a free no obligation valuation and you're discounting your fees? That's poor. That's 0.5%. But the way you answer the phone, for example, something I took for this, I'm proper fanboying on Ian today. I'm like, on saying the stuff he said. You said ages ago on the podcast, Ian, it was the way you guys answered the phone. It was something like, good morning, thank you for calling Stories.
Yeah, thank you. They start with thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, if I was back in agency, I'd be doing that. Because when it's good morning, Simon speaking. So that like verbal handshake. The amount of agents I phone up, and obviously I don't know who it is ringing before I've rung, and it's hello, or it's morning, James Kendall. Like, you guys obviously don't do that, but you're like, that's the
I was
first
to mention that.
So like sometimes it is just getting the like. There's some really, this sounds really harsh, but there's some really, really poor agents out there. And I think when we had lunch several months ago, guys, do you remember me saying that we're kind of cocooned here, where we're only seeing maybe the top 1% across social media, the podcast, etc. So you're going, oh my God, everyone's doing videos these days. No, they're not.
No.
You're in this small little area. So I think that the OGAP thing is a really good thing to look at in terms of actually looking, like stripping it right back and being really honest and accountable with yourself. And that self-awareness, because the amount of times, again, where I've had agents go, I used this system, it didn't work. They go to another one, it didn't work. They go to another one, it didn't work. There's a common denominator here. It's not the tech, it's you.
Yeah. Royston Guest taught us this thing called EBI, and he does it in his businesses where he EBIs everything. And EBI stands for even better if. So he'll take the incoming calls and he'll say, right, let's sit down, let's EBI that. How can we, what even better if? What can we do to make it even better than we're doing already? I think EBI is a great little thing to remember.
Yeah, I literally write down in my journal every day, www.ebi, what went well, even better if.
Oh, do you? Yeah. Yeah.
So what went well today? What could have gone better? And again, what does 2% look like? You guys have said it before, so James, it's like I said, broken record, but saving someone's number in your phone. Again, someone rings you after 5 years. Hi, Simon. How are you doing? Jesus Christ, he's got my number saved in his phone. Whereas just go, hello?
Yeah. It's all those things are true, aren't they? And I think even though you say, Si, that we sound like a broken record, I think we have to keep drilling all of these things into people because it takes people so long to implement things that you have to keep drip feeding this information regularly to get through. And those agents who are performing the best in the country are those who implement like straight away, aren't they?
The thing is as well, there's a lot of people that want to up fees, but they don't want to up their value and their service and their offering.
Yeah.
You can't all of a sudden just turn a 99p cheeseburger into, a steak and chips meal for £15, can you? It's got to be. I can see you guys look at me like, where the hell is he going with this analogy right now? A 99p cheeseburger isn't a fillet steak meal. That's why they are two separate prices. You go into McDonald's and sit down on hard plastic, or do you get waited on in a nice restaurant?
Just going on that, JK, doubling down a bit on that. We did touch on that again last week when we were saying that sometimes you're going to have to take a step backwards or sideways to take that huge leap forward. And more often than not, the answer to the question being asked is always the same. How do you look? Using some of these principles here, how do you look? How are you answering the phone? When somebody lands on your website, what are they seeing? Did you skip a video on the last house because there was no budget for it? It's those little things. You've got to get that consistent approach every single time. And if you are a little bit unknown, obviously social proof, that general marketing mix, consistently doing it over a period of time will get you to a point where you are the go-to agent. And you might be doing a few fee deals at the start, etc. But you might have to go there to take that giant leap forward to get to become a 2% agent. It's like, Ian, you were talking about your story last week. And I remember a few weeks ago, we were talking about, I very much like lower volume and higher fees. That's where I like to be on a personal level. And you sort of said to me, well, I've got to the point now where I'm also a volume agent because you are the go-to agent where you are, which is an amazing place to be. It's a nice problem to have. But that's only come from hard graft and consistency.
Yeah, it's come from graft and consistency. Yeah, and putting yourself out there.
Yeah,
for 5 years.
And I think as well, obviously, Gates is on the podcast and he is the data master, I suppose. But I just think when we look at data, I don't think you can't not use it. It's so important in our industry. And I personally have seen it elevate me in my valuations in my area. Like I say, I'm not the volume agent. I'm not the number one agent in my town, in my areas that I operate in. I don't necessarily want to be in terms of market share, because I think if you get in that way, then it becomes unmanageable and you're probably doing lots and lots of fee deals, etc. But I think one of the things that sets me apart is my ability to demonstrate what the market's doing and get that across to my client. And I'm surprised sometimes when I do speak to people how little data they use in preparation for things like valuations. And I just think it's extremely important. And if you're not using it right now to educate your market, I think it's probably one of the quickest ways to get you in a position where you're seen as an authority, because it shows that you know what you're talking about.
On your point there, Dave, and with the monthly market update I started doing at the start of the year, again, when agents say I'm struggling for content, there's no lack of content. So we're recording this on Thursday, 9th of May. Obviously, it's going to be coming out after the Bank of England have announced what they're going to do with the base rate. But that's something that every agent should have in their diary today at midday to put on social media. The bank rate has done X, Y, Z, and this is what it means to you. Whether you're looking at
that second part of that, what you've just said there, don't just post it. It's such a great way.
Articulate it.
Yeah, articulate it. Ian had one the other week where you put one in a WhatsApp group and you sent it to a client, but you didn't just send the article. You've got to back it up to say, look, this is the news that's coming out about interest rates. It's not something I think we should worry about. I think it's the market correcting a little bit because the Bank of England don't look like they're going to drop interest rates just yet. So add something to it, and you get high level responses as well. But you just articulate it, show that you're an authority, show that you know what you're talking about.
And on that point as well of like market your marketing. If you this morning put a poll on Instagram, so Instagram story, or put it on Facebook and local groups, what do you think is going to happen to the base rate? Up, down, stay the same? And when people are voting on it, particularly on Instagram, and they voted it to go up, and then it stays the same, you then message them, hi Dave, you voted that it was going to go up, it stayed the same at 5.25. What does that mean to your moving plans?
Yeah, great show.
So it's a really good way to get interaction engagement on it. And then just on the base rate there as well, and what you said about like contextualizing the content there, I see too many agents who literally copy and paste a Rightmove house price index. That the public already have that. So do you again commentate on the Rightmove house price index and then give data on what's happening in your local market? So here's what's happening nationally, here's what's happening locally, and then particularly for you guys and your listeners, the higher end of the market. So in the latest Rightmove house price index, it said about the strength of the top of the ladder market, because they are less impacted by the volatility in the mortgage markets because there's a lot of liquidity there, a lot of cash involved.
Yeah.
On that.
Yeah. And I think, again, we've talked a lot about preparation for valuations on this podcast. And I'm a big fan of Dataloft. I like that. And it is a game changer, I think, if you're going out to value, especially when you're going out to value high value homes that are very subjective with their valuations. So, I had one the other week. Ian, you might want to, I don't know whether you do want to mention the one that you were talking to us about last night, but it's not always straightforward, but the data doesn't lie. So every single valuation I go to, I tell the client and educate the client once I'm in the room that it's not me marketing their property.
Is that on Insta, JK?
Yeah.
So
just for everyone listening. So whilst we've been talking, James has gone onto his Instagram story and literally put a poll up on what do you think is going to happen to Bank of England base rate, and that's a prime example of, I think again last week, Dave, you'd said about what implementers, action takers Ian and James are.
Yeah.
And how many people will listen to this, and I appreciate this will go out after the Bank of England meeting, but how many people will listen and go, yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, and then don't do it. Yeah.
Not do anything. And in my time at Home Search and since, when I come to James with crazy ideas, and he'll tell me a bit shit, which is cool, but he'll go, yeah, I'll give that a chance. And then next thing I know, Bosch, he's put it together, he gives it a go. And I think that something I was keen to talk about, and I think it's good to talk about it considering the success you had with your buyer letter campaign, Dave. On the buyer letter side of things, in your group, how many people said yes, please, to that buyer letter?
Yeah.
James sent out, but actually how many people have sent that letter? And if anyone's listening to this right now, and they've got that letter from James and they haven't done anything, they've heard Dave has just sent out 99 letters and got 9 responses, they should be sat there going, shit, why the hell have I not done that? And again, all estate agents marketing is around, do you want a free no obligation valuation? Well, if let's say you're trying to get into a £1 million market, I appreciate it's going to vary up and down the country, but who's typically the buyer of £1 million property? Maybe someone who's got a house at $750,000. So go and target them and say, have you found what you're looking for? Can I help you? Because again, double bubble, build a chain. If Ian says, I'm looking to buy at $1 million, but I need to sell my house at 750, how many people say, I'm not going to list mine until I find somewhere? And most agents go, you want to list yours first, which I get. Go and do buyer campaigns, both online and offline. So James has done stuff on LinkedIn and Instagram. You've also done direct mail campaigns. And there's so many different ways that you can work that. You can charge a buyer's agent's fee. You can charge them a higher fee. So if you're trying to get to 2%, you say, look, I'm going to also act not to just get you sold and get you the highest price. I'll help you find somewhere. So that's a way to potentially charge a higher fee. And I've seen some really good buyer campaigns. One of my clients actually charged a buyer 2% on £3.5 million. So it got the £70,000 plus VAT fee.
Nice.
I sent out letters and it said, you as a seller have nothing to pay if this buyer buys this property. I'm retained by them. They got half a dozen responses from that saying, I love the idea of this. I am thinking of selling. I don't want to pay an agent's fee. But that buyer, if they're buying their dream home, that they're going to be in for many years, I'd arguably say they're more prepared to pay 2% at £3.5 million than a seller who's exiting that property.
100%.
So they're like
100%.
exiting, they're done with that. Maybe they're in their head before they see the value, more like 1%. But that buyer, they're going to be there for a very, very long time. You're trying to show them things that are not available on Rightmove. And just going back to you, I'm really like going off on one now, so I apologise, guys.
No, do it.
Dave, on the bit you said earlier, so above £1 million, 30% of properties last year didn't hit Rightmove. So it was sold. And if that's a market you guys are in, people listening to this want to get into.
Gatesy, just repeat that because I think it's so important. It's huge.
Last year, 30% of properties sold off market.
Incredible.
Over $1 million.
So look at
over $1 million. But so below $1 million, it's more like 5%.
Can I just say something quickly, Dave, before you jump in as well? Because I just think just on data, how data is transformative in all different things, and there'll be lots to unpack. Firstly, if you're losing out on valuations to agents with lower fees and higher valuations, we'll unpack that in a second, because Dave, you're the man to talk about. And I'll just say, on record, Dave uses Dataloft, and I had heard of Dataloft, but and even some of our members and people I've been in contact with since we've been doing the pod and doing TCA, like, people have these subscriptions, and it's a bit like, and Simon, you'll relate to this as well, and you kind of touched on it a minute ago. They blame the software, but they're not utilizing it correctly. Dave's Dataloft training that he did with our members and how he does his valuations has been, for me personally, as an experienced agent, I consider myself up there in terms of experience and knowledge, but just having that data in the background, because I am, as you guys have kind of alluded to, I'm kind of Mr. JFDI. That sounds like a good idea. Let's just effing do it. Let's just crack on with it. Whereas, like, Dave, yes, you've got elements of that as well, but you're the guy, and I've learned a lot of you this way by what does the data say, and how do you, and even with you, Simon, when over the last 4 years that we've been mates and working together, helping me understand and articulate the data to elevate, I guess, my pitch and my offering, and understanding how that fits in, and being able to articulate that to people. So let's unpack the valuation bit in a second. I'm just going to, leading on to that, one of the things that I think is also important with data is, especially at the mid to high end, is being able to articulate things like, so again, classic example, in one of our, I think it was our Q4 letter we sent out, that went out Q1 with the update, was, I literally used this in a meeting the other day, that inflation peaked at 6.5% last year in May, and wage growth was 6.4%. So it kind of negated the big impact of that. But I said this to the guy I was had a meeting with, a valuation, he was just blown away by the fact that I was able to articulate that, and I knew that information. Things like knowing last year when we were having conversations with people, and Dave, I think you articulated it really well, mortgage approvals are down 40%. So, if you want to achieve X amount for your house, you've got to be aware that there are effectively 40% less buyers with finance in the market now. And also from just a plug for you, Gatesy, as well. One of the things that's also been transformative, not only for me, but for my team, I know Dave and Ian, you've both utilised this as well, is the monthly or quarterly stats that you're able to provide with your data insights in terms of, what are we achieving on average as an agency? What are we withdrawing? How long does it take for us to agree a sale? How long does it take for us to complete a sale? Like, in my opinion, as much as I love Street, and Street is a great CRM, and we have got a code coming soon for £500 off. But I just thought I'd get that in there. But, I firmly believe a CRM should tell you all of this off the bat anyway. It doesn't yet, and I'm sure it will come eventually. But having that service from you, Simon, like being able to go, right, this month, and basically what Simon does, he sends me a 4-page basically insight into what my business is doing from the outside based on the different data metrics, so land registry, all sorts of different data points. But what it does, and again, it's going back to charging more and being worth what you charge, being able to sit in the living room and say, well, asking the seller's questions. So, of last year, how many people do you think actually who put their house on the market actually moved? And most people will throw a number at you and say, oh, I don't know, 80%, 90%. And then when you say 53%, they're like, crikey, oh gosh, that's not a lot. And then being able to articulate your statistics to them and saying, well, look, here's the stats. This is the data. This isn't my opinion. This is the data. Everything that we listed, we sold. We took under offer over 90%. So I think the actual stat was like 91.8%. And having this all written down so you can present to people and go, well, look, do you want an over 90% chance of accepting an offer on your house, or do you want to flip a coin? And it's tangible then. And they also then present in the fact that, of those that we took to market, 88.12% actually exchanged contracts. So those people moved house. Whereas again, do you want to be in the 47% of people, or do you want to be in the 88.12% of people? It's entirely up to you. And just being able to, I think that's what's super powerful about data. And that's something that I've really had to get a grip on, because I'm much more of a creative, maybe right brain type. I've got that left brain part of me. We won't go into that too much, but I'm much more of a kind of creative type. And I'm a kind of, if you've got a disc profile in, high D and high I, but I've really had to learn to get to grips with the data. And I just think if we've got time now, Dave, and you can go through it briefly, you're not going to do a data loft training session here. And also, feel free to chime in, guys, as well. Like, just maybe go through that data process of, when it starts on the valuation and how transformative that is and how it could be for somebody.
Yeah, well, I mean, talking left and right brain, just quickly, obviously you've got your left brain, which is your statistical side. Your right brain is, I suppose, the more arty side, etc. My view on that is it almost doesn't matter. It's just my opinion, this, and my experience, but I don't think it matters what your client is. They need to know, whether they're data-driven or not, that you are an expert in your field and that you know what you're talking about. And it's your job to make them understand what that data means to them. So obviously figuring out, go on, JK.
I just want to say something just on that, just that, me, I love an analogy, but when you go to see the doctor or, like a surgeon, they give you stats based on data. They don't go, well, I read a book once and I opened a guy up and hopefully it will go well. You want to know if someone's doing brain surgery on you, they want to know what my odds, what my chances, what's the data. So, you are the brain surgeon in property in someone's living room. So yeah, sorry, Dave, that's what I wanted to say, just to contextualize.
No, it's so important. It's your job to basically make them understand and how it affects them. And it works really well in various different scenarios. So when I was chatting before and we went off on a 20-minute sidestep there, I was saying to Ian, like, Ian's had a valuation that you might want to talk about, Ian, you might not. It's up to you in a sec. But we chatted about it on our thread last night, and I've had one similar quite recently. When you're valuing houses at the higher end of the market, you can't just give an opinion. Obviously have an opinion, but don't just give them an opinion and stick your finger in the air and think, I think it might go for this, that or the other. Give them the actual data. There's plenty of information out there to show them where their valuation should sit based on the market data. I had one very recently. The data says that the property is worth somewhere between 1.1 and 1.4 million. It's a huge range, that, but it's based on pound per square foot for the overall area. It's pound per square foot for a detached home. It will land somewhere in between that. It might even go beyond it. But like I always say to the client, and I know you love this, that is the subjective part of any valuation.
Ding, 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 ding.
Particularly at this end of the market, what is someone prepared to pay for it? So on that particular house that I'm talking about, it sits in an acre. It's massive. It's 5,000 square feet. But it needs some structural alterations inside. Somebody's going to knock it to bits and open it up. They might even extend again. So to them, it might be, I'm going to have to spend, especially now with the cost of building, etc., I might have to spend 300,000 on this. So to me, it is only worth 1.1 million. Somebody else might come in and go, oh, I can see the potential in the garden and what I'm going to do there. That's great. I just want to secure this property. Let's get it. I'll pay 1.35. So it's difficult. And it always comes down to it's only worth what someone's prepared to pay. It almost doesn't matter what you think, Mr. Vendor. It almost doesn't matter what I think. It's only worth what someone's prepared to pay. My job is to deliver the stats, the facts, the data to tell you where your property sits in the current marketplace. That's my job. And you might not like what I've got to say, but I don't want to bullshit you and tell you something that I think you want to hear. So it's really, really important. And the market values your home, not the person. That's the really important thing. And I've had one this week where a particular vendor who's on a mid-range brand, they've seen something they want. They've been on the market now for 2 months. They've had decent interest, but the feedback is consistent. People are saying that it's a little bit overpriced for what it is, etc. So he rang me the other day. He said, Dave, I've seen a house. What do we need to do to get this sold? And I said, well, have you read through the report that we did, the Better Proposals report that I did for you, or reread it? He said, no. And I said, well, please go back to it and just look at the marketing price and strategy that I put together for you. Because if you remember, the £325,000 was your price, not mine. My price was 280 to 300. We wanted to try 325 at your level. And we did say after a certain amount of time, the data didn't support that. And basically, if it doesn't, we need to reduce. So that's ultimately what I think you need to do. And he was like, right, totally get it. Great. But it wasn't, like I say, it wasn't my valuation. It was the market's valuation. And all that's happened here is that somebody's not met his subjective part, if that makes sense. They've not met his valuation. Lo and behold, we've reduced it. We've got another boatload of interest. And that house will probably sell. But data is really, really important for that. And I don't think it matters who you're presenting to, whether they fully understand it or not. It's your job to help them and make them understand. You can't just say, well, that 4-bedroom detached property or that barn conversion over there sold for that, so yours must be worth the same, because it's not how it works, particularly at the higher end of the market. So understanding your data, valuing based on data, for me, is a game-changing experience for the person valuing, but also the client.
Can I just say as well, Dave, just because I know we give away a lot for free on here, and the reality is, a lot of people will listen but never implement. But some of the I think if we could just unpack a little bit without turning it into the whole podcast, some of the things that you do, like present. So again, looking at what the market's done pre-COVID to now, and demonstrating the growth in the market, demonstrating the decline from the peak in their particular market. So drilling down into their particular postcode. So where you are, BL97. Being able to present that data to the client and go, well, look, in BL97, Bury as a borough, this is what prices did pre-COVID and post-COVID, and this is where prices have gone now. In BL79, what prices have done for detached properties is they've gone here. When you bought the house, for example, it might be £185 a foot. Now we're averaging £362 a foot. At the peak, we were £380 a foot. This is the decline. This is what the data is saying at the moment. And, again, it's what's transformative is you should never really lose a valuation on the value, because you're able to back it up with the data and go, look, this isn't my opinion. Agents may have an opinion, you may have an opinion, I may have an opinion what the house is worth, but it's taking that conversation out of, So for me, we had a chat on the phone the other day, didn't we, Dave? Like they're printing off the last 12 months of transactions in that particular postcode and presenting that on an Excel spreadsheet and like printing it out and then going through people and saying, well, look, this is the minimum pounds per square foot for a detached house in your particular postcode. This is the maximum amount. This is the average. And going, well, look, the data's saying anywhere between, in this particular house, I said to you, didn't I, 725 all the way up to 850. And again, this chap was in finance, so he really appreciated the numbers and was just, I was able to articulate and go, look, to be honest, the data says somewhere between 725 and 850. The house feels to me subjectively somewhere between 750 and 8 maybe. But obviously, data aside, the value is a subjective part, not in a Bolton accent. But then I was able to say to him, and it's a classic Dave Warburton line, the numbers, again, in this particular instance, the range was quite broad. But if the data doesn't hit the number that they're particularly looking for, that's okay, because that's the subjective part. So you say to them, look, that's what the data's saying, but there could be another 5 to 10% worth of variance in terms of what the data says and what someone's prepared to pay. So, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, what did you have in your head? What would you like to achieve?
Exactly.
And he said, look, to be honest, somewhere around 780 to 800 is what we've done our figures on. We looked on Zoopla Classic, and the Zoopla said 850, which we thought was way out of proportion. And he goes, I totally agree. Pounds per square foot's all over the place, but that, we want to move. We'd be happy somewhere around late sevens. And I said, well, look, can we agree this? Let's test the market at, again, not on a price point. So Rich, if you're listening to this, please don't hate me. Let's go offers over 775, always offers over, because if there is interest, it allows us to go up. And if it doesn't work at 775, let's bring it down to offers over 750 as a plan B. And then we can test the market at slightly lower, because as we all know, the market values your home. So it takes the kind of, just by doing that, and again, this has been transformative for me, it takes the kind of you versus them and my opinion versus your opinion out of the equation. And it is, we're working together to sell your house. This is what the market is doing. The market is, this is the market price. And my job is to negotiate and market the hell out of your house, because we haven't said it on the podcast yet, an agent could control 3 things. And I'm not going to say it again, because if you listen to this podcast, you know what they are. But again, seller nods his head, goes, really like the sound of what you said. And again, for me, it's just been transformative, because, not only are you demonstrating the quality of the marketing on things that they can see and tangible things like brochures, but to go to the level of, I think people in their head, they don't say it to you. This guy did say it to me to a degree. But if you're going to go through that level of effort and detail on valuing my house and going through what the market's doing, able to articulate what things like the BOE base rate is doing, what inflation's done, mortgage approvals. Do I want somebody to sell my most valuable tax-free asset who goes into the level of detail and is as knowledgeable as someone, again, put it into brain surgery? If you had a couple of brain surgeons sat in front of you, do you want the cheapest one, or do you want the one that's actually going to save your life and give you better quality of life?
Mm-hmm. We've only just signed up with Dataloft, so we're about to start using it properly, should I say? But we've been using data more heavily with regards to pound per square foot this year than ever before, really. And I've also been using stagnant reports from Rightmove to show properties that have come up with other agents at too much money and just not sold, changed agents, reduced, not sold. And there's so many of them, especially at the higher end. And that's been really powerful. I had one last week that we put on. It's gone on at offers of a 1.25, which is what I suggested originally. But after me, she had 2 agents in, one of whom said 1.5, which is absolutely bonkers. Like the pound per square foot price puts it about 1.1. But it's a beautiful plot. It's a beautiful looking house. 1.25 feels like a bit of a stretch. But I think for the right buyer, they'll probably go for it. And I'm so glad she listened to me, because we've had 1 viewing request booked in a week on that property. And she had 2 other agents say 1.4, 1.5. So by using the data and by using stagnant stock on Rightmove, it really helped me to educate the client. Dave, you asked that question about the client that you and I spoke about last night. And this is a property where I went to about 6 months ago. It's a grade 2 star listed property. Okay. So, but it is really, really nice. It's got a master suite and it's got a big kitchen, 2 of the things that you can't often do in a grade 2 star listed because you can't extend them. But it's got a master suite and it's got a living dining kitchen with an orangery on it. So it doesn't really need extending. But I thought originally it was probably about 1.25, this property. But she was doing work to it. So I said I'd go back and revisit it. She did work. She decorated it all. It looked absolutely beautiful, really luxurious feeling. It's 2.5 acres. It's lovely views and stuff. So I said to her, wrongly, I won't do this again, but I said to her, look, let's do the photographs and the marketing, and we can adjust the price. I said 1.25, but maybe it's a bit more. We've done the marketing, and she said to me yesterday she thinks it's 1.65 now. I was like, I was like, oh my god. And I said, anyway, I'm still in talks with her now. Like I said, I just don't think it's anywhere near that much, Caroline. And so we'll see. No. We'll see what happens with that one, but. Definitely, I should have addressed that issue before we'd done the marketing. And I think we'll agree somewhere in the middle, and then we'll just see what happens. But I know, Dave, you're going to run through with me this morning, creating some data loft data to put in front of her to try and prove the point.
It's massively important, guys. It is. And if people aren't doing it, particularly at the higher end, but I do it at all levels of the market because you can, I'm not saying you should never skirt over valuation, obviously, but there's not perhaps as much emphasis placed on it in the valuation. You don't have to spend, how many times you've been there maybe in a former life when you're a little bit more inexperienced trying to justify your valuation, almost arguing with the client.
Yeah.
You don't need to do that. If it's data driven, you're dealing with facts. And like I've said, I said to a lady yesterday, you'll get another 2 agents that'll come in. They'll probably just tell you what they want to hear. But what all I would encourage you to do is follow the data. You might not agree with what the data tells you. And like you said, JK, that's okay. It doesn't matter. It's fine. It's your opinion. That's the subjective thing. If you want to try it at that certain level, that's fine. We'll see where it goes. But as long as you know what you're dealing with, that's the important thing.
Can I just say a few things on what you're saying there? So I read this the other day, and I think listened to it on a podcast, in terms of too many people walk away from friction rather than walking towards it. When you walk towards that friction, that's when the power happens. And I can't remember who said it earlier, if it was James, you, about the Zoopla estimate. This is going back a few years now, but I was getting fed up of, again, being less experienced, like you said, Dave, where you're in someone's living room, you're like, oh, so what research have you done? I haven't done any, Simon. Oh, okay, cool. And then you go through the whole thing, the market evidence points towards 700,000. Well, the other agent said 800. I thought you said you hadn't done any research, Mr. Seller. They're obviously being vague and that. So, and there were times when a lot of people, half a dozen years ago, oh, well, Zoopla said this. So I actually got to a point, rightly or wrongly, but it worked well for me at the time. I used to just print off the Zoopla estimate and put it in front of them.
Nice.
So what do you make of that? So it's a bit like James, we've had it before as a follow-up to instant val tools. The instant val for your property is X. I have my opinion, but I'd love to know your thoughts.
Yeah.
Or they're going to get your opinion, get their thoughts. And they go, I thought it'd be worth more than the estimate. Oh, what makes you say that? Bosh, got them. They're both at that point. And again, in terms of using the data, I think, again, people don't rate data because they're not using it correctly. So when you say, what do you think your chance of selling is, Mr. Seller? Well, 80, 90%. It's actually a flip of a coin. The way you change 50% chance into flip of a coin, that's really powerful in their brain.
Yeah.
So I think that's very powerful. And then just for example, at the moment, 45% of properties that come to market sell in the first month.
Yeah.
Mr. Seller, for you to get the very best price for your home, we know from all our years' experience, you get the best price in the first month for marketing. So the other thing as well, which is really interesting from Rightmove, and I think this is, again, very powerful on that discussion you were having, Ian, with that seller, is the likelihood of selling. So I'll send this over to you guys if I've not shared it before, but Rightmove did some research from January 17 through to the end of 2022, and it looked at when a property gets an email inquiry. So if you get an email inquiry on day one of marketing, you've got about an 80% chance of selling. Now, if there's no email inquiries in the first 2 weeks, it goes down to about 50%.
Can you say that again? Because that is really bloody powerful. So, say that again. So if you get any email inquiry on day one,
you got about an 80% chance of selling. That's
wow.
what that's
Rightmove data.
Yeah, so they measure it on the email inquiries because obviously they can't really do it on telephone calls because
No,
someone
of course not,
might
no.
ring through Rightmove, might not. But the email inquiries, 80% chance of selling if you get an inquiry on day one. If you don't get an inquiry in the first 2 weeks, it goes down to 50%. So Ian, let's say you're the seller. Ian, I know that you want to try at the higher price and you're in no rush to sell. But if we test it too hard and we don't get that inquiry in the first 2 weeks, it then presents you with a 50-50 chance of selling. Would you prefer to have an 80% chance of selling? Yes, I would. Well, get the price right from the start to get that inquiry coming. Because, again, over the years, I don't know about you guys, but again, in my less experienced days, you phone up a seller and you're like, oh, it's a bit quiet. It's the summer. It's only been on a few weeks. Actually, I look at that Rightmove data and go, Jesus Christ, you actually know within the first day, week, 2 weeks, how likely it is to sell.
And I think you know as agents as well, don't you? You know, when you launch it online, like, you know, I know Rightmove gets a lot of hate, but it's a massive lead source for the majority of agents out there, whether they want to admit it or not. But you know, like when you obviously you do your social launch and you can normally get a couple of inquiries off the back of that. But you know, if you go to Rightmove and the phone doesn't ring via Rightmove or there's no email inquiries that come in, automatically you're thinking, either it's half term, Christmas, or the price is wrong.
So on your point there, James, again, using Rightmove data, and I know, again, agents love to hate Rightmove, but again, there's so much powerful data there and the public trust it so much, more so than agents. So with the Rightmove thing, let's go back to that seller you spoke about and the strategy being offers over 775. So it's Mr. Seller, like plan A is offers over 775, and this is the reason we're doing it. However, I just need to let you know, a reduced property on Rightmove has a 56% chance of selling, versus one that hasn't reduced is 76%.
Wow.
And not you saying that, Rightmove. So I appreciate, look, we want to get you every single last penny possible, but just to bear in mind, once it has a reduced sticker on it and buyers can see no one else bought it at that price, they then might think, what's wrong with it? Yeah, exactly. So not only do you have a 56% chance of selling, those that reduce take 2.5 times as long to sell.
Yeah. I mean, there's some gold there as well for people to take away, isn't there?
Yeah, 100%.
On a valuation, just being able, even like you say, the public does Rightmove more than they do agents. Just being able to articulate. I mean, even for you, Ian, like if you're having that conversation with that seller now, at 1.65, and just saying, look, this is what the data says on Rightmove. This isn't me. This is what data says. If this happens, these are your chances. Just so you know, before we launch, this is what the data says. This is what Rightmove data says in terms of your buyers.
Just like Simon, what's that data about reduced properties? How much less they end up getting if they've been reduced than if they were?
Well, the stat from Spectre, and God, you put me on the spot now. The Spectre stat, again, you just Google it, it'll be an article. But I think Spectre had said a property that's been on the market for 8 weeks or more, if they change estate agents, they're 34% more likely to sell and actually achieve 12% more for their property. Because again, imagine it's on with James Kendall, and let's just say it's shit marketing, and it's on at 500, and all James
Fair comment.
But right, I was with a client yesterday, and there was one house at the higher end of the market, and it's reduced 3 times, but it's not got a video tour, it's not got twilight, it's not got professional photos, and you think all that agent is doing, again, going back to what you said earlier, James, is they're looking at ways to cut corners on their costs rather than going, how can we bring more value to the table to charge higher fees? So if that agent's just gone reduce, but at no point have they said, let's get the drone out, let's do a professional video tour, let's do twilight, etc. So 34% higher chance of selling according to Spectre, and you get 12% more. Because again, imagine, again, James has done, sorry, I'm picking on you, James, but James has done a terrible job of it. It comes on with Ian at the same price, twilight, professional photos, video tour, you expose it through social media, you've got your database, and then you go and sell it versus that other agent who's dropped it a few times.
And we've done that. We've done that multiple times. So just think, I'm conscious, obviously, we're heading towards the end of time now. Be good to get everyone's take and put you all on the spot. Obviously, BOE base rate day today. What are all of your opinions very quickly on what's going to happen?
I think it's going to stick. Just based on what the banks are doing as well at the moment. I think they I don't think they see that happening now until probably later in the year, because it was mooted, wasn't it, at the start of the year? It was going to be around now, May, June, where we would start to see rate drops. And certainly at the start of the year, we were sort of saying that to clients. There was a lot of buoyancy in the market when people came back in the new year, where people were, well, we always say on this podcast, don't we? The media fuels the property market, like it fuels a lot of things. And last year it was all doom and gloom. Interest rates are just going to keep going up and up and up. Are we on the verge of a recession? But as we pointed out, wage growth matched inflation, which was not forecasted. So that helped people cope with the rising interest rates. This year, when we came back, it was like, oh, great. I think the banks have started getting into fee wars in a good way. They're offering better rates for clients. And the signs are that the base rate of interest will come down middle to the end of the year, and probably halfway through next year will be more at like 3.5%, maybe 4%. Now it's kind of like, well, I think we jumped the gun a little bit. Things will probably stay as they are for most of the year. It might be next year before we see drops, or certainly the end of the year. So my view is that it'll just stay the way it is for the foreseeable, to be honest with you. I can't see any changes today. I think it'll stay the way it is. So it's nothing to panic about.
What about you, Katie?
Yeah, just to add my 2p on it. So the Monetary Policy Committee, who do the votings, there's 9 of them. Last time, 8 voted to pause and 1 voted to reduce. And that is the first time in a long time no one voted to increase it. Yeah. Which arguably means we have seen the end of base rate rises. And this should be the 6th pause in a row. A bit of stickier inflation meant that what are you smiling at there?
Because you broke up and you went silent. But the thing is, because your podcast is at a separate channel, everyone else will be able to hear what you just said, but we can't hear what you just said. Oh, right. We were just sat there like...
Okay, so you're just agreeing with my amazing
100%, mate. You're really wrong.
But again, the other thing to factor in, there'll be a lot of buyers sitting on their hands going, oh, we're waiting for a base rate to drop and then interest rates will drop. The banks have already, like Dave said, there's been some competition there. They've already kind of reduced their rates to factor in the base rate dropping at some point. So they've already gone up a little bit from where they were, and the swap rates have gone up. So I think that, anyone who sat on the fence about buying, so wait for interest rates to drop, they're going to be sat there waiting for a long time.
And what about you, Story?
Yeah, I think it'll stick as well. Yeah, I mean, everything was pointing towards a fall, wasn't it, mid to late year? But you can't see that happening now, can you? I still think a stick is fine. You know, we've been bigging it up to buyers. You know, the fact that they've held for so long now, and it's the new normal. And I speak to so many of our older clients who are like, "Well, so what? Interest rates are at this level. That's cheap." You know, I bought my first house in 1984. You know, so we went through 17% interest rates in the early 90s and stuff. So I think it'll stick, and I think it'll be fine. It's just how
inflation's a good barometer of what it's going to do as well. And, you know, the last reported inflation was 3.2. I think if you actually look at all the different parts of the puzzle, it's actually still tracking at around 3%. So I think you'll probably find it at, and there's a good website that I use called Trueflation. I don't know if any of you guys use it, but I look at it quite often and I quote it in my vowels. But, you know, Trueflation's tracking at around 3%. And I think the government will report a slight drop in inflation today, which will then, the MPC will report a slight drop in inflation. And that will then obviously justify them holding the rate again. I do think, would I love to see it come down? Of course I would, because I do think that would, again, boost confidence in the market. And I think the media would have to back that up. But ultimately, I think they're going to take a cautious approach and hold. So I think if anyone's got anything to add, we'll wrap up there. It's been a really good hour and 10.
Can I ask one question aside? So one final question, just to add a bit of value. If we've got people listening who think they haven't got money to invest in using someone like you, Si, to provide them with data, what would you say is the sort of 2 sort of most important data points that they could try and ascertain for their business to use in the marketing of their clients' homes, or to use to try and win instructions? Are there any that are sort of more important than others, and easier to obtain for them for free?
Yeah, so again, going back to Rightmove, if they're paying Rightmove users, go into like the Rightmove hub and go and look at all the data that they've got in there, some invaluable stuff. So, for example, video. You get 8% more detail views from having a video on your listing, and you get 6% more inquiries. So, if anyone like is sat there going, I don't want to invest money in the video, it's increasing your chances of selling that seller's property, but also generating you more business off the back of it. I think the other data point to just look at from business generation, we mentioned reduced. According to Rightmove, a reduced property is 1.5 to 2 times more likely to change estate agents. So if I'm starting out tomorrow, let's say I'm in business with James and I'm going after Newport Pagnell higher end, perhaps one of the first things I'm doing, which doesn't cost me any money, it's just my time, is going and knocking on doors of reduced properties and then talking about the fact that, did you know a reduced property is less likely to sell? I can bring it on, do a video listing, it gets you more views, etc., etc. So I think, at the start, when you're not known, you've got to get out there and get in people's faces so they know who you are.
Yeah,
perfect. Right, well, mate, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks so much for joining us. Where can people find you? Give yourself a if they're under a rock and they have never heard of you, unlikely, but if they haven't,
you can find me on the Complete Agent podcast every single week when I get my mention. You find me so Facebook group, opening the gates to more listings, and then on Instagram, LinkedIn, you'll find me as well. I'm always trying to share content across those platforms, and if you go to those, you'll find my bio, which has my Linktree account. And you said about, again, free value. There's so much free value in my Linktree account for people to check out. Yeah, perfect. All right, brilliant. Well, as always, thank you very much for listening, and we will look forward to seeing you next week.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, guys. Cheers, Si.